Hey guys, BBI here. I want to stop and say thanks for tuning in and checking out whatever the video is about that's about ready to come up next. If you could take a minute and hit subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoy what you've seen here, make sure to hit the like button. We'd greatly appreciate your support. Anyhow, guys, all that aside, let's get on with the show. Well, gentlemen, I want to bring you all along for an adventure. Our good friends at Excess Power sent this over for me to do a quick little just kind of test video of it. I've been wanting to get my hands on one of these now for a little while, and I just haven't had time to fit it into the rotation of things, number one, and number two, it just hasn't worked. So as I'm worked out and getting it here and so on. This is called U-Start, and this is some neat technology. It's a couple years old. The idea of this is a couple years old. Let's go ahead and take a minute and let's pop open the package and let's see what we got on the inside here. So this isn't a battery as much as it is a supercapacitor, as much as it is a self-controlled supercapacitor. When you open the box, you're going to find yourself a description guide table with just a sticker, and we'll go over what all this means here in just a few minutes. Set that aside for a second. And then over here you got your installation guide. We'll also go over this here in just a second. This is something that is currently made, without a shadow of a doubt, and I'll just say this. Thoroughly impressed with this idea when I came across this and seen it for the first time forever ago. How well this is going to work in today's application, especially for my radio guys, I don't know. We're going to find out together, you and me. We're going to go over this together. But this is neat. This thing is really neat. It's heavy like a battery, but it's not a battery. So I know this isn't really every guy's fantasy here is to have to sit down and read instructions. So we're not going to hover here for too very long. The whole point behind this hybrid capacitor is that it's got everything on board to manage the capacitor itself. Okay, it's got some really trick electronics on the inside that manage everything this thing is designed to do. We're going to come back to those specifications here in a second. They want you to disconnect the battery that is closest to the starter. Okay? This whole process should take you less than 10 minutes to install this particular unit. You're going to install the battery. Now this is this is just a real standard Group 31 battery design. This is designed to drop into the same location as your Type 31, Group 31 that's in your semi, your standard commercial fleet vehicle, and most automotive vehicles. Okay, so you're going to take and you're going to remove one of your batteries that's in your semi or your commercial fleet vehicle, and you're going to put this in its place. You're going to put this in the location that is closest to the starter. We can see that on our little diagram down here in the bottom. Typical battery installation, U-Start installation. It's like I've been saying for a long time with all the supercapacitor videos, you put this as close to your amplifier or to your load. Now, I'm not saying that this is the best thing for us, and that's what we're going to test and we're going to take a look at. But for guys that own huge fleets of vehicles, there's some huge upsides to having this thing installed in your trucks. Okay, apply a no aux to the U-Start terminals. This has got standard 5/16 studs on it. And it does not come with any nuts, bolts, or hardware, because the nuts, bolts, and hardware that you pull off of your existing battery will drop directly on here. Okay, Check the UStart positive and negative terminals line up with the positive and negative terminals of the remaining battery in the vehicle. Positive and negative battery terminal cables, RE. Install, hold down, do not over tighten. So what they're asking you to do is disconnect the battery inside the vehicle. This should line up and you should have positive and negative terminals orientated the exact same way. You're going to install the positive and negative terminals. Okay. Connect the positive and negative terminals to start cylinder positive and the positive and terminal UStart. Connect the vehicle positive cable to the positive and the terminals to the negative. Connect the vehicle's negative battery cable, we're going to do this last of course, or frame ground negative cable to the negative terminal of the UStart. Connect the vehicle negative battery cable to the battery. So what they're saying, in short, is you're going to disconnect your batteries from here. You're going to install, with this battery also disconnected, we're going to pretend it's not there. You're going to install these and you're going to install your battery last. Hook up positive first, which is on this side of the illustration, then you're going to hook up the ground. Connect the vehicle battery cable to the negative terminal. We just went over that. Torque the connectors to 14 foot-pounds. Apply direct protectant to all terminals. Because lead acid batteries outgas, we don't want to have any corrosion take place in the terminals, so what they're saying is apply a little bit of dielectric grease to help protect that. A solid yellow LED on the UStart indicates the UStart is in maintenance mode and not activated. Start vehicle to activate. Optional. Download UStart app on the YouTube, or download the UStart app in the App Store or Google Play. Well, we've gone and got that. This thing is Bluetooth optional. We've got that app. So on the back of this thing is their actual data sheet for this. I went out and I did a very quick look for this and wasn't able to readily find it. So we'll just hold it here if you need to pause the video and check it out. I got a couple things sitting here in the background I want to show you. So we've got this antenna, and this antenna is hooked up to our ICOM 7300, and this is our established baseline noise floor. We're in the middle of 27 megahertz. Nope. Nope. This is our just antenna attached, nothing on the workbench. We're just going to scroll through most of the bands here. And we see that we have about an S5 noise floor for most of the band. And we get up around 27 megahertz and we have ourselves about an S2. So, mini scope, no, function menu, meters, there we go. 28 megahertz, about 32. So basically flat, nice and clean environment. I mean, we're not in a total Faradayed cage, but we got ourselves a fairly decent, clean environment. So now, let's go over to the spectrum analyzer. We got our reference line at 0 and a negative 50. Our center is at 132 megs. Our start's at 10 hertz and goes all the way to 264 megahertz. So how we have that set up is we have a separate antenna that's hooked up to our spectrum analyzer. And we just have it laid here on the bench. And we are going to use a voltmeter. We're going to establish what we've got for current voltage on the UStart cap. And then we've got ourselves our flute clamp over ampering for us to establish how much current's actually going in and what's taking place. Now, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I seen one of these sitting in a battery store here in town. And I was like, man, that is cool. Because my mind went all to Twitter with what this thing would actually do. The two guys I had with me, they couldn't understand why I thought this was the neatest thing since ever. I mean, According to these guys, this will extend your current battery life up to 2 times. The hardest electrical load that the battery sees in any fleet vehicle or in any vehicle is when you go to start it. And having this sit here as a giant buffer in between that huge electrical load and the starter, just jaw-dropping. Now, I can tell you this is my first exposure with this on my workbench, getting to play with it. I'm a little leery because there's so much balancer stuff that's going to be going on in here. There's a what they call a BMS module that's built into this, or it'd be a CMS module that's in here. It's going to control everything, and I don't know how electrically noisy that's going to be. For people that aren't worried about radio, hey man, I'm here to tell you, this is going to get you 40 to 60% longer life out of your starter, and this is going to double, if not more, increase the lifespan of your batteries in your fleet with just this one particular device. It's going to cost your battery maintenance, and your starter maintenance is going to drop by more than half by installing this cap. And I knew that just as a kid. I looked at that and went, whoa. This thing has the ability to dump enough current to where the batteries and the electrical system in the vehicle don't see it when you go to start it. Most semis or big fleet vehicles, when you go to start them, the cranking volts, everything drops to 10 or lower in some situations because the batteries can only get rid of so much current so quickly. This thing can get rid of all of its electrical current like that. That's the upside of one of these units. So, proceeding forward, what we're going to do is we're going to establish our baseline resting voltage here across our terminals. We're going to hook up at 12 volts. We're going to gauge off of here. We're going to gauge with here to see what it's actually pulling for current. And then we're going to figure out how long it takes for this thing to actually charge. When this thing is completely charged, you'll get this green indicator light over here in the corner which says run. This means maintenance, which means it's in a charge state. And this means we have a problem. Okay? Smart technology. So, let's go ahead and let's pop some caps and get some baseline voltages. Now, according to the data sheet, I've got to make a little correction. The standard stud size is 5/16, but, and what I mean by for eyelet stud, okay, 5/16. This has got 3/8. These are 3/8 thread terminals. I figured this out because I had to go get my own hardware, which is no problem. Believe me when I tell you that. So, see what we got for a baseline voltage here. Should be next to nothing. 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 Nada. Let's leave that hooked up for a minute and going. So while we're here, we are going to go ahead, run this over to 0. 0U, and we're going to pretend like we're doing the instructions. We're going to hook up our positive terminal first. Now, if this is everything in a bag of chips, I should be able to drop my ground lead on here. And there should be no arcing and sparking. Just a little tiny bit. Alright. According to the clamp over fluke ring, we're pulling about 1 amp. We're currently sitting at 12.74 volts. Let's let it charge. Okay, So what we can see here is we got our maintenance light, which means it's charging. This is our voltage going in, attached to our battery bank, and this is how much current is being applied to the cap at the moment. Now I see zero increase in the noise floor on either unit, either my ICOM or over on the spectrum analyzer, which we'll come back and we'll look at. But according to the instructions for us to be able to activate, is there might be some smart technology in here that says, okay, instead of us trying to run the batteries down and deplete the batteries, it's going to have a little bit of electronics in it. It says, oh, okay, because of the voltage, this unit is going to apply a very small parasitic load. But when the voltage increases to 14, there might be an electrical switch inside that says, hey, we can charge now at full tilt. Let's do it to it. So let's watch and see what happens as we bring on the voltage. And we're going to apply a 15 volt load to this thing. We're going to watch our amp gauge. Nothing. Oh. Already got a green indicator light, but we see it's consuming more current now. We have two blinky lights here. Got a solid green, and it's charging. So there is an internal charge cycle. Well, real quick, a little bit of a noisy hump here, but that was present before. And no appreciable noise floor here. So the $64 million question is, now we're up to a solid 6 amps, 6.1, 6.2, 6.4, 6.5, 6.6. Now I do have the stopwatch running. About 4 minutes in. 7.1. I'm going to back this voltage down a little bit to a mere mortal status. Thanks to excess power, I have a huge supercapacitor bank underneath the bench here. And I'd like to have more, but time will tell. We should float on down now to about 14.8, 14.7. Somewhere near something that would be normally applied in an electrical system. Would you like that? I have a bunch of excess capacitor, big lead acid batteries underneath the bench, and that's attached in parallel to a giant super 1000 amp power supply I built. We're at 9.1 amps. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to cut away, and I'm not going to touch this thing anymore. We're going to let this go through its full maintenance cycle, and we're going to sit here and we're going to watch it, and we're going to see how long this takes to charge. With us pulling 9.6, almost 10 amps worth of current. Oh, I bumped the power supply too far. There, 14.5, close enough to real world conditions here. We're just going to let this sit and run. We're going to see how long it takes for the capacitor to come to full charge. But with the inrush of 10 amps now, I'm feeling this is going to continue to kick up just a little bit. We're going to sit back, we're going to watch. I'm not going to try and predict the results, we're just going to see what happens. So, on that note, Okay, so we finished our charge cycle. Took about 10 minutes and 57 seconds. This is the app. It's very simple. Download the app, make sure to turn on your phone's location. For those of you in the Android community, we like to control our ability to have access to the phone location. For those of you in the Apple community, I'm not saying I'm jaded one way or the other. I'm not. I'm just saying that for those of you in the Apple community, you're not going to have to worry about that because Apple can just turn on your location whenever they want, and so can all the apps. So, very important. If you download the app and you can't get it to pair with the U-Start battery capacitor, it's because your location isn't on. It gives us a very clear voltage indicator. It gives us a charge cycle. And what I mean by that is around the start button, you see that little green ring? That's telling us our charge status. It gives us a maintenance indicator. It gives us the error indicator if there's a problem inside the cap. If you look at the top, you're going to see there's these little cute little lights. If this is blue, that means the Bluetooth is connected. The yellow means that there's maintenance, and then the green means it's good to go. So we're currently sitting at 14.72 volts, and we're pulling less than an amp by far, 0.3, 0.2. We're going to reach in here on Old Smoky, our 500 amp carbon pile, and we're going to apply a load to it. Now, what I want to show my guys in the radio community is that if I take and I lay my antenna across the top of the unit, I want to show you up here on this radio. Look at how relatively quiet this is. Ain't got a whole lot going on, right? Well, let's go down here. Let me move this just slightly out of the... Let's prop you up underneath there. There we go. Voltage, amp draw, coming from power supply or other batteries. And we'll use our carbon pile tester to represent our load to our starter. So let's go ahead and let's bring this on. Chug, 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 chug. Okay. Battery or starter truck starts. Now, let's look up here. We see radical changes. Now, this will slide around in frequency a little bit as the charge cycle increases. See, now it's fully charged again, and it just shut off. You see that? See the decay history? See? Let's go back down over here to the starter capacitor. Charge cycle is off. It's fully charged. It's ready to go again. So let's repeat this test. Let's put a significant load on it, 300, 400 amps. Let's turn this back off again. It's entering into a shallow charge cycle state. 16 amps. Our noise floor is back. 16 amps. Just shut off again. Did you hear it pitch change? So that's what I was afraid of, is the electronic control unit that's inside of this thing is susceptible. It makes a little bit of noise, which I'm sure we could fix that with just a little bit of shielding. But now for us to be able to make that measurement, I had to take the antenna and put it literally on the unit. You get about this far from the unit, you can no longer even detect the noise in the 4 signal ratio. Downside to that for the radio community is that everything's always attached to ground. Okay, your antenna, your coax, the radio case, cabinet, the whole vehicle case, the frame, this unit. That noise will be ever present. So let's do the same test. Now let's take the antenna and make it so it's kind of kissing all the electrical terminals here on the bench over here in the background. And let's see if we can detect it down the line. So I'll put a 300-400 amp load on the starter capacitor once again. Chug, 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 chug. Turn this off. We're going to go into our charge state. And the results are, yep. And as soon as it fully charges itself, this noise will disappear. So no matter how you try and isolate this unit out for the sudden loads, in the radio community, this is not a good fit. For the guys that are in fleets, that have got fleets underneath their belts, big, large numbers of vehicles, or the guy that's got himself the work van, and he's not too overly interested in talking on the radio, but he doesn't want to have to buy batteries in his fleet unit every 3 years. This will literally allow you to double your battery life and do more for your starter than you'll ever know. My supercapacitor I have in my Tahoe, when I start my Tahoe, that thing sounds like it's going to run out of the motor and run down the street. It went from zoop, zoop, zoop to zoop. This thing's ability to give out more current than the batteries there's nothing in the market that's even close to it. These guys right here, which is a sub company of Excess Power, are leading the industry in capacitor technology and research and development. I've seen a product that they released the other day, our standard supercapacitor, which is about yay high. They have managed to shrink it to this big and have the same amount of density. So, and what I mean by density is the amount of amperage, storage, outrush ability. To describe all of those terms, the term that you use is called density. So they managed to take the density of the capacitor cell and shrink it by half, which is huge, huge, huge. Well, guys, this is the U capacitor, the ultra capacitor, made by ultimately our good friends at XS. This is really, 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 really cool technology. I can't stress to you how neat this is for fleet vehicles. Big semi trucks. If you're into the radio, which most of my market demographic is, this is not something that you want to install in your fleet. A good friend of ours, Brian Smith at Truck CB Sales, he bought one of these at one point and he put this in his mobile and it worked awesome until he would key up. As soon as he would unkey, this thing would go into a charge cycle to recharge the caps because of the balancer that's in here doing its job, and he would lose receive. Needless to say, he sold it to his buddy that owned a semi. His buddy wasn't into that big in radio, and they went on down the road. So, gentlemen, my name is BBI. I want to say thanks for tuning in, checking this out, following along. You got questions or anything I can do to help you out on this or any of your other electrical issues? Sometimes, I mean, like I had a guy call me the other day. Hey man, my power's off in my garage. Can you help me figure it out? I'm not kidding you. It was on a Sunday at that. And I sat there with him on the phone and helped him figure out that if his breaker was not tripped and he had all the power going for his entire garage and his front stoop lights were all going through a GFI breaker in his garage that was also attached to his freezer. And then he had to reset his GFI outlet. So you never know what's going to happen when the phone rings. Gentlemen, my name is BBI. If I can't answer your questions about this product, I'll make sure that you're able to get in touch with our good friend Sean over there at XS, and he will totally be able to answer all your questions. I'll see you guys. I appreciate every single one of you. Click, click, click.